my friend. Welcome to A Time to Care the Caregivers podcast. I'm Isabel Melgarejo. And today with us, we have Judy Romano. Judy she has been a caregiver for a good chunk of her life. She's an occupational therapist and has focused on adult rehabilitation. She's also a driver evaluation specialist, and she goes to homes and gets to work with seniors and their caregivers. She is on a mission to educate, support, and connect those motivated caregivers to find the resources that they need and to teach them whatever they need. So, welcome, Judy.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So, how did you become an occupational therapist?
It's a caregiving role. So I was drawn to that. I started being a caregiver when I was 7 years old.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm one of the older daughters in a family of 7 kids, and my youngest sibling, Nancy, was born with Down syndrome. And so, it naturally fell to one of the older daughters to jump in and be part of the solution there. So that's what I did. That's how I started being a caregiver. And then, as my life progressed, I realized it was something I liked and I was good at. So it made sense to become an occupational therapist.
Yes. How does that connect with evaluating driving abilities?
Good question. Occupations are things that people do in life. Occupational therapists focus on doing. And, driving is an occupation. It's an occupation that also is a gateway to other occupations, like doing home chores or going to a job or taking care of a family. So driving is an occupation. And when I first started being an occupational therapist, nobody could answer patients' questions about what they should do about driving. And to me, it was a very important question. And I realized that there was nobody, at least in my circle, who knew how to answer questions. So I'm like, I'm going to look into this further. I became what we call a driver evaluation specialist. It is a subspecialty area of occupational therapy.
Driving is one of those big topics, and if we consider there's a lot of professions where you have to quit your job at certain age. Airplane pilots after 60, I don't know the age exactly, but after 62 or 64, whatever the age, they can't fly anymore unless they go through some kind of testing. Same happens with people in the military, people that use different tools or machinery and they operate them. Like, you can't keep working on that. For me, it makes sense that you need to test your abilities if you want to keep driving. So what are some things that usually bring the first red flags in terms of someone might need to get tested?
There are quite a few, and one of the big ones that I've always known about is that somebody has a medical condition. That can be a medical condition that affects your ability to see the road, or it affects your ability to hold the steering wheel, or affects your ability to use the pedals. Those are some of the entry points that I first became familiar with. But nowadays, it's much more families having concerns about someone's cognition, their ability to take care of themselves, their ability to manage complicated paperwork things. Sometimes families will call me and their older driver that they're worried about has had a series of fender benders. I just had a call last week where a man walked into a police station because he couldn't find his car. He thought it was stolen, right? It wasn't stolen. It was just that he didn't remember where he left it. and that caused him a lot of trouble. I get a lot of calls from people who are in trouble with the Registry of Motor Vehicles for all different things that have happened to them on the road. And a local police officer will show up at the scene and make a determination that this driver is what they call an immediate threat. And then that person's license is suspended. And I am somebody who the registry relies on to provide additional information about whether or not that person has the underlying skills that go into safe driving.
Yeah, I can see how, like, I find usually with life itself, we notice things once something is happening, once they lost their car or several vendors, whatever it is, but something has to happen. Are there any indicators that would help families identify before they enter the police station and say that they have lost their car?
You know, families are the people who call me mostly, right? And they notice there's a decline in some kind of function. There's four major areas actually that kind of deteriorate in people's abilities, and they're all related. They all can cause serious problems. Those four areas are medication management, and a problem in that area, of course, can cause an underdose or an overdose of a medication. There's financial management, with a lot of people nowadays getting scammed or not taking good care about their decimal points and their zeros and making dollar mistakes. There's cooking. You know, I get calls from people about family members who have left the stove on and a fire happened in a pan. And then there's driving. If a family member, for example, notices somebody having trouble with their checkbook or having trouble with managing their pills, then they start to suspect that driving may also be something they're having trouble with. Families, they're the front lines. It's not an easy conversation because people in our country, we prepare to retire from work or we prepare to retire from having an income, but nobody prepares to retire from driving. Just imagine that we're going to just like drive up to the grave and jump in. Like nobody thinks about it. Yeah, so I recommend when I get calls like this that, you know, the family focus on safety and caring about the safety of their loved one and of other people. Drivers need to understand that they could hurt somebody and that could ruin their lives on an emotional level if that were to happen. So families need to approach it not from like a you need to stop driving right now kind of platform to we're concerned, this is what we've noticed, we need to check this out, it's important to be safe and to be responsible. I tell people have the conversation and keep on having it, not just a one time conversation. You got to keep it up, keep discussing this. And because it's a lifestyle issue, whether you drive or not, of course, if someone stops driving, then there needs to be a plan about how to get them to appointments and to the grocery store and outside for socialization. It's a big issue that a lot of older folks just are very, very threatened by. A caring conversation that keeps on going is important.
You're worried about safety. You're worried about um, the safety of your loved one. You're worried about the safety of other people on the street or driving next to your loved one. That is your main concern. But for your parent, your grandparent, their concern is about losing their freedom of going anywhere, going to a store or to visit friends or whatever. How do you approach that conversation? You still, as you mentioned, you still have to go to doctor's appointments and get groceries, and people still need to have their lives. What do you recommend so they don't lose that freedom.
There are resources out there. People don't want to use them, they don't like them. And some of them are app based, like Uber and Lyft, for example. There's an alternative to Uber and Lyft, though, that I think is a really great thing for people to look into. It's a ride service like that, but you don't have to have a smartphone to access a ride. It's called Go Go Grandparent, and they have a call center. And at the call center, they used to at least have like customer service representatives who performed as your virtual grandchild, for example. They would get to know the person who needed the ride, what they look like, where they like to travel to, what their issues are. It's a little more personalized. That is one example of a service. Another service that I really love to recommend is to have a personal chauffeur. And all that is somebody in the community who is maybe a retiree and has time on their hands and a driver's license. And that person can be a dedicated driver for somebody who shouldn't be driving anymore. So, the way I think it works well is if the family or the impaired driver sets it up so that this chauffeur person will come like every Wednesday and Friday from 9 to 1. And that allows the person to schedule all of their appointments or any of their social things that they want to do during that particular time frame. That way, they're not asking somebody to come or to do this or that. It's just like a set thing that the person can do whatever they want with during that time. They could take a walk, they could go to a gym, they could do any sort of things at all. It's just that time is dedicated, and it makes it so that the person isn't always begging for something. I like that very much. I think that families should have a shared calendar too. Like it could be a group chat or it could just be a physical calendar on the wall where everybody who's involved in this issue can look at it and sign up for assignments if they want to. So it needs to be a public calendar, it needs to be shared amongst people. It's on the wall, it's not hidden. Nobody has to beg or ask for any sort of help. It's just part of what we do as a family to take care of this.
Yeah, yeah, and there are really good apps that help families with that calendar. I personally like Team Care Pal because you can just make a list of things that need to be done, and you can invite to your community, friends, family, and they can jump in and decide what each person wants to do. So I really like that app in that regard because you have control over the activities. You also have control over um, important documents, for example. I like these kinds of apps where you have all the information in the same place.
I mean, I feel like every family, every caregiver needs to take the time to create something like that. And I um, am a fan of a 3-ring binder that is personalized to the person who needs the care. And there's a page with a medication list, and a page with family members' contact information, and a page with healthcare proxy, and all the information that anybody else could possibly want or need about an elder person that they're caring for. So, yeah, you got to put that information, find it, document it, and keep it public for people. Everybody needs to have a list of the medications that they take in their wallet. So that's, really important thing to share.
Once you're done with the evaluation, what do you find are the biggest hurdles? after someone loses their driver's license.
It's just an adjustment. It's a long, slow adjustment. And unfortunately, some of the people who lose their license are people who have cognitive issues. And that, in and of itself, makes it harder to adjust, because when you have cognitive difficulty, you have short term memory loss a lot, which means it's hard to learn new things or new ways of doing things. It's a big, huge event in somebody's life because it's changing so much of their world, and that requires a long, slow adjustment and help from other people to learn all these new ways of being.
If you're losing your sight, you can still learn new things or experiences, but I hadn't thought about it. The whole idea of having to relearn and not having that skill of relearning because you have lost a short-term memory. That's for me is eye-opening because I have never thought about that.
People say, oh yeah, they can just take public transportation. Well, that requires knowing where it is and what the schedules are and how to buy a ticket and how to get on and off. And so that is a lot for someone to learn.
And that is if you have access. I think when we were talking about this podcast, I told you if I wanted to take a bus from here, I would have to walk probably for a couple of hours. Is it an option for me? Definitely not.
I mean, most towns have senior services. Like my town has a senior center, and at this senior center, they have it's like a storehouse for all the options for seniors. They have buses that go around and pick people up. They have buses that will take people to the local supermarket or to doctor's appointments. They also have lists of people who are potential drivers for somebody in a personal car. So, a senior center in a town is a great place to start looking for services and resources.
As a family caregiver, how do you cope with this? What are some strategies that you recommend? Because obviously, with every change, the coping takes a while. You have to build new routines, you have to build new strategies. What are some good ways that the caregiver can cope with these changes? Because obviously, once you receive the news, is like you're relieved that you're not going to be putting other people in danger, but then also you're thinking, now I have to be responsible of taking and driving and making sure that my loved one, my mom, dad, my spouse, whomever it is going to all these places they have to go.
Caregivers need help, and they should never think they can do it all alone. And reaching out to other people is a way to preserve the caregiver so that they can continue to do what they need to do in their own life as well. I highly recommend that if somebody is struggling with this issue, that they look at their local senior center to see what options are there. I also think there's other ways of hiring caregivers, like I talked about the dedicated chauffeur kind of idea. I think that it's really important for people who are suddenly not driving to still get out of the house, get sunlight, and get exercise. And that's a great way to like elevate someone's mood or to get them to see what's happening in their world. When someone stops driving or, isn't going out as much anymore, they can just devolve into this lifestyle where they just sit all day long and do nothing, socializing and getting out of the house, getting sunlight, getting some steps in, staying active, maybe going to a gym, finding other people, friends, neighbors, anybody, kids, adults, it doesn't matter who it is, to come into their life and their world and help create some diversion, some interest, something to keep them feeling like they matter in the world.
Of course. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
Well, I mean, there's some changes going on in the world of driving. Driving is regulated by the state's registry or division of motor vehicles. It's not a federal issue. Every state has different policies and procedures that people go through to renew their license, for example. Some states are starting to require that a driver show up in person for a vision test at age 70. So I know that's happened in Massachusetts. It's going on or starting at least in California and Arizona. You know, having good vision is really critical for driving. And if somebody is a driver, they need to see an eye doctor. Eye doctors have forms that they fill out on behalf of a driver for the Registry of Motor Vehicles. And that's a good thing for someone to do if they have any special vision issues or they're afraid of taking the registry's own like on-site vision test. So being proactive about vision is super, super important. The other thing is that the normally aging older driver understands that driving is risky, right? So as people age, they understand that they want to reduce that risk exposure. They start to avoid more challenging driving situations. I advise people, if they want to keep driving for as long as possible, that they have their vision checked, that they keep up to date on the rules of the road and the signs. And there's online courses for that with AARP, at least. They have an online driver safety course. And also, start to not drive at night or not drive on highways or not drive to unfamiliar places or not drive in construction zones or not drive when school buses are out. And those are all pretty doable when they just require a small change in attitude and timing of trips. There's things people can do to keep driving for as long as possible, but also understanding that driving is a lifestyle issue, planning where you're going to live and how you're going to conduct your life if it turns out that you outlive your ability to drive, which most of us will do.
Definitely, I believe how the differences, how Europe was built against how the US was built, were very different, because the US was built for everybody to have a car. That was for Henry Ford's legacy to us. Everybody should have a car. And that's how the US was built. We have huge highways, everybody has a car. Europe was, they invested, instead of investing highways so people could drive, Europe invested in trains. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just how things were built. And obviously there are consequences to both, right?
They have their ups and downs. For sure, each one. When you look at a town, you can search for its walkability score. And a lot of times when a realtor is putting a house up for sale, they will include that in the listing. So if somebody's looking for a place to live, they can check out its walkability score and just learn about transportation resources that are or are not available in that particular location.
Well, Judy, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I've learned so much, and I hope all the listeners are learning as well with us. Where can people find you and learn more about you?
I am the Informed Caregiver, and I have a website.
Mm-hmm.
It's called theinformedcaregiver.com. Because I don't deal just with driving. Driving is a specialty area, but I am a caregiver educator as well. So at theinformedcaregiver.com, I offer training to caregivers. It's virtual training. I have a course or a couple courses actually there. I have free resources for people. People can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at The Informed Caregiver. DrivingSolutionsForYou.com is the website for anything related to driver evaluation.
Well, thank you so much, Judy. This was such a wonderful conversation, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me and for spreading the word. It is a topic a lot of people are curious about, but don't even know where to start. Yeah.
That is right.
Thank you.
Hey, just for you to know, the content presented in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any affiliated organizations or sponsors. If you need additional advice, please contact the right partner for you.